Hello and welcome to the Rover Ramble podcast. My name's Rover and welcome to another episode of the show. Each month I'll be joined by a different special guest from Ramble Conversations, so without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. This month I'm joined by Ninten, who is a content creator over on YouTube and sometimes streams over on Twitch. Ninten, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
That was the most flat hello I think I've ever heard. But
Yeah.
It is lovely to have you here, and I tell you what, I am really smiling at the moment. I was just saying to Ninten before we start recording that I was really bad at doing the intros, and it takes me 3 or 4 attempts, but we just got that first try, so and Ninten's here to prove it. So, I mean, how amazing is that? Ninten, how are you doing today?
I'm alive.
It's really, really upbeat, this show, to start with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm as good as I can be. Still half dead, you know. Got a job, so.
Is that good news? Is that bad news?
I don't know. I'm yet to decide.
So, Ninten, usually at the start of the show, we usually have a little chat about what we've been up to recently, what's been going on in the world, and, yeah, general catch-up. So, what have you been up to recently?
Well, like I said, I got a job. I'm working at Dunkin' Donuts. That's fun. It's not fun. But basically there every day. I got a few days off, but other than that, I've just been Minecraft. That's about it. Don't really do much, to be honest.
Dunkin' Donuts and Minecraft.
Not a bad combination. Free donuts and Minecraft. Can't go wrong there.
You can't complain. It's been I was going to say it's been a similar story in my end, but it hasn't been, apart from the Minecraft part. I mean, we're both part of a Mathcraft, and Season 5 has started since the last episode of the podcast. That's pretty exciting. I think most of my time is going into that at the moment. I literally, while we're recording, I'm AFKing on the server, trying to get gunpowder, because rockets are soon going to be needed. That's been most of my time, and new content and new videos. Definitely been a big time sponge recently. But I'm hoping the weather would warm up soon, because over in the UK it's supposedly summer. It's July, and it's cloudy and has rained mostly. So that's the way we're going.
But doesn't it always do that in the UK?
Pretty much. It really is. The weather can't make its mind up this year. It really is very, very strange. Now you may notice.
You can have my weather.
Yeah, well, yeah. Sometimes it'd be nice.
You can take it. If it's been 90 degrees 4 days in a row, you can take it.
Oh, that is very hot. That is very hot.
That is a very hot, I agree.
Yeah, so it would be nice to scrap the weather. There are some heavy grey clouds out the windows I'm looking out there at the moment, and I'd rather they pass before they dump their rain on us. But There we go. Now, you may notice, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, that this episode of the podcast is out just a little bit later. Now, this obviously was supposed to come out a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately, due to scheduling and getting this podcast up and running, we've had to push it back a little bit. But here we are, we're sitting down, and don't worry, there'll be another episode of the podcast coming out at the end of the month. So, yes, make sure to leave all your comments about that one. Shall we jump into today's main topic of the show, Ninten?
Sure.
Let's do it. So this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about streaming versus recording and all that entails with that. Now, you may have noticed throughout sort of the structure of the whole show recently, for the past few months, we have looked at these things a little bit before and we've touched on them. So I thought it would be a really interesting thing to dedicate a whole episode to. So here we are. I brought over Ninten, who has streamed before, creates content, all of that jazz. So hopefully we'll get a bit of an interesting conversation going. So I think let's start with let's start with an opening question. What do we prefer, streaming or content creating?
Personally, it's a little bit of both. I think I prefer streaming, mostly because I find it a lot easier. I'm not really good with the whole editing videos or stuff like that, or even like scheduling them. I find it a lot easier to just set a stream up and then stream for as long as I want. And it also allows me to, have more interaction with my viewers.
Definitely. I think that is one of the big things, like that interaction with viewers, I think is sort of the one of the main reasons people stream. It's just you get that instant feedback from your viewers. You get that interaction, and it's constant. It's all the time. It's really, really great. Whereas I'm sort of on the other end of the spectrum to you. Whereas I agree with you on those streaming things, and I do enjoy streaming from time to time. I actually find streaming more difficult for me in terms of scheduling. Trying to find 2.5 hours where I can sit down for that whole 2.5 hours and not have to go and do something else, I find quite hard. So that's why I quite like recording, where I can do 10 minutes here, I can do 10 minutes there, and I can sort of jump between and fit it around me. Whereas I find streaming quite difficult because you have to know, okay, those 3 hours, bam, I've got that time to stream. So that's where I can find it quite difficult. But I guess that sort of depends on your own sort of life, what's going on in the world, and how things are sort of playing for you at the time. So I do like to stream, but I find mostly I tend to record. So compared to recording and streaming, what are your favourite bits about recording?
Tough question. I don't really know. Like, of course, I do like recording with friends. That's obviously always a fun time, and editing all together, I think it's very, I don't know, satisfactory having like everything like fit to what you want when you're finally done with editing a video together and it fits the vision you wanted for the video. It's always a good time. It always feels good knowing that you've accomplished what you set out to do. And just recording in general, it can be a good time, especially if things go right.
Yeah, it is. I find I get more of a satisfaction out of putting out an edited video than I do after a stream. After a stream, I will feel tired, thirsty, and my throat will probably hurt. Whereas after a video that I might have spent more time in, I feel like I get a bit more satisfaction. But then again, I get more satisfaction in the process of streaming. So I guess it sort of balances out a little bit. You get more response and more energized during the streaming, and a lot of the time you can get actually more motivated once the content's gone out, because then people can actually, it's there to be enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think one of those this sort of links onto an interesting question, more focusing down the streaming line now, which as you've said, you're a bit more into. What is your experiences with different streaming platforms? What is your favourite? What have you used? Why do you use what you use? What do you use? That sort of, yeah.
When it comes to streaming, I like to use YouTube. I don't know, I find Twitch is, number one, harder to gain any viewers on, considering there's so many giant Twitch streamers, so it's harder for smaller content creators to even get, noticed on Twitch. And another thing is, I feel like Twitch is just, to me, it's needlessly complicated and doesn't really work out for me. Plus, I like YouTube's, ability to have thumbnails for different streams. I don't know. I like the options of diversity for my streams, and most of my audience is already on YouTube, so I might as well just stick there, because then they'll be able to see what I'm doing there instead of having to go to a completely different website. Yeah,
that was See, I've been one of those I have actually jumped a lot between Twitch and YouTube, and they've been for sort of different reasons. So I think I started off streaming on YouTube here and there, and then I switched to Twitch for a little bit, and then I went back to YouTube, and now I've gone back to Twitch. And in a similar way to you, I found a similar sort of story that I find when I'm on YouTube, I get my regular viewers coming through, and I'll get sort of my main reach to those set viewers. Whereas if I'm on Twitch, I will get newer people coming through, but because it's not any longer linked to my YouTube channel, I don't have that sort of core audience because I'm not as active over there. So I don't have that core audience that come back every time. So I found it hard balance, but I've sort of come to the conclusion myself that I want to now, when I stream, I'm now going to just completely do it on Twitch. And that's mostly down to sort of a whole bunch of YouTube issues that there have been in the past with streaming, and it's not very well integrated into the YouTube platform compared to how videos are. And I haven't found the discovery on YouTube too well. I haven't reached those new people that I would want to. I think the only time I ever reach new people when streaming on YouTube is titling a video "Hypixel Bed Wars" or something like that. Then you get like 20 people coming in. Can I play with you? No, you can't. But yeah, I've decided to make that switch to have those two dedicated platforms for streaming content creation. That means I've got my dedicated video audience, and I can then grow my Twitch audience. And from what I've seen other people do, they've taken completely different routes. Now, two previous guests on the podcast have done the two different routes here. So, Septic Spud, who recently joined at Mathacraft, I spoke to him a while back, and it may have even been in the podcast episode he was in, and we were talking, and he said he wants to dedicate his content production purely to YouTube, hence why he streams on YouTube. And he's got a second channel for his streams and all of that business. Whereas Vloop did the complete opposite. He's actually more taken a break from YouTube and has gone fully onto Twitch to stream. So there's definitely pros and cons to both sides. And it's such a difficult area, because I think, how did you get into streaming? I think that's an interesting question. How did you get into the whole process of streaming?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. It was a long time ago that I started streaming. In fact, I think the first video on my channel right now is a live stream. So, I don't know. I think I just was like, you know what? I see all my favorite YouTubers stream, so I'm going to press this stream button on OBS. And I think that's really all of the story behind it. I don't think there's anything groundbreaking of why I wanted to stream. I just kind of wanted to try it out, so I did.
Yeah.
And I liked it.
Yeah, and I think, I'm trying to think back, but I think mine was a very similar process. I think it was back in maybe late 2017, early 2018 that I would have started streaming. And my channel was beginning to grow at that point after about sort of 6-7 months of being pretty slow and not much happening. And I think I must have done a similar thing. I just decided one day to stream. But I tell you what I found difficult was learning how to stream. I've always found that, at first I found it really difficult. Now it's a simple process. You've got to copy your stream key in. But it's actually learning how to do that. When you watch other people's videos and content and streams online, they don't explain how you're going to be doing this in a regular video that you watch every day. You go there for the content, it's there, but then it's learning that whole process of, okay, you've got to get a stream key from the platform, put that into your encoder, which is generally a lot of people use OBS, Streamlabs OBS, and then move, and then you should be able to good to go. So that's an interesting thing. But yeah, I found it quite difficult to start with, and I actually still find it difficult doing all the sort of designing for the streams. Like, do you have the chat on the screen? Where do your pop-up notifications go? What do they look like? Doing all that branding. How have you found that? Have you ever really played around with that, or do you just purely stream and then you watch the chat and respond to it? How do you usually create that content?
I don't know. I kind of mix it up. When it's games that I can, not really pay full attention to, I'll just look at the chat. But when I have to focus on what I'm doing, then I'll have the chat on the screen, so that way it will help me read the chat and also focus on what I'm doing. And when it comes to all the setting up the stream keys, getting all that done, I've never really had a problem with it. Although recently, Streamlabs has decided to mess up everything, because I don't know if you know this, but if you use Streamlabs OBS and you try to stream on YouTube, instead of going to the YouTube studio to stream, everything is now inside of Streamlabs OBS. But it will also mess up YouTube Studio. So you have to make sure both are exactly the same, or else it will start 2 streams at once, which is a pain.
Wow, I have not heard about that, and that I think shows that last time I streamed, I can't remember, it must have been the Mathcraft stream day, and that was over on Twitch, so it must have been ages ago since I last streamed on YouTube. I'll have to have a look. I'll have to see if I can find it during the recording of the show when I last streamed. But yeah, and you raised an interesting point, and this will probably be the first tangent that we go down. There are lots of different encoders out there that people use, most popular being OBS, but there's also Streamlabs OBS, which is a little bit more dedicated to streaming. And I personally use Streamlabs for both streaming and recording. What do you use and why?
So I found out it's easier to use Streamlabs OBS for both streaming and recording. I just like the way it's set up, and it's a lot, more comfortable to use. And I've always had issues with OBS, like a lot of issues with regular OBS. In fact, a lot of the times I've tried to get your help, and you have helped me a few times. But I've never really had any issues with Streamlabs. It's just been a more comfortable thing to use, and I know, how to use it. So I've always just decided I'm just going to use it for both streaming and recording. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I was in a very, very similar place. I think I started off by using OBS to record, as I think most people do, and then I saw on Twitter and some streams here and there that people were just every sort of mentioning slobs. So I went and had a look at what slobs. So SLOB stands for Streamlabs Open Broadcasting Software, so Streamlabs OBS. And I went to their website, I downloaded it, and I remember before downloading it and taking a look, I remember reading on the website that it said something along the lines of, there must have been a quote from a user or something that gave a review that said, "This changed my life, changed the way I record and stream." And I, in my cynical ways, looked at it and went, "No, don't believe that for a second. How can just a different platform that's quite similar to OBS change everything?" I downloaded it and it changed everything. And by the way, this episode of the podcast is not sponsored by Streamlabs OBS. This is an honest review. Downloaded it, and it is so easy to use. It's got so many integrations built into it. So if you're going streaming, you can have the chat on screen. It's easy. You create a chat box or whatever, and it automatically links up. You have pop-ups enabled, all of that sort of stuff. It's brilliant. Streamlabs OBS is just, it's like a more bulked out version of OBS, which is the whole point of OBS. It's allowed to do that. It's an open broadcasting software, so you can adapt to it. And yeah, that really, really made a difference. And I have just looked up on my channel when I last streamed to YouTube, and it was 10th of October 2020, so fair old whack of time ago now. But yeah, that was that made it it changed everything. To be fair, I still have OBS installed on my computer. It's my backup. One downside to OBS is I always find it does updates as soon as I want to record. So I open OBS to slobs to record, and it has to download an update, which takes 5 minutes. It's some of those updates are massive, take way too long, and I find that frustrating. So I do have regular OBS, because there have been times where Streamlabs OBS has failed me. I mean, for example, I'm even using OBS to record parts of the audio for this podcast, because I don't need the bulked out version of OBS slobs to do that. So no, it's both have their merits, but I think overall Streamlabs is definitely the way forward. So if you're listening in and trying to get into this whole game, get Streamlabs, definitely the way forward. So back to sort of the streaming thing, as we were on that sort of path, what are the big standout disadvantages to the whole streaming game?
Well, finding times to stream can be a big pain, because you have to have dedicated, set times. You got to know that you won't be busy for the set amount of time you want to stream, as well as making sure a stream goes well, because when live streaming, things can go wrong in an instant, and it can completely ruin a live stream. Where if you're recording, if something goes wrong, you can fix it. So I feel like it's just a lot more risk involved with streaming. At least.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very much with you. And I think one of the big things cannot always be internet. Can be a big issue, because if you're streaming on a Minecraft server or something, you've got to have that internet bandwidth to be able to connect to the server, be able to play well on the server, because you don't want to be jumping around and lagging out like mad. And you also need to be able to send that data to YouTube or Twitch or whatever your streaming platform is, again, without that buffering and all of those issues. So I always find the internet side of things, it's never been too much of a battle for me, but the odd time here and there, it's caused me pain. And with recording, it's not an issue. As long as you can connect, for me, example, to the Amathcraft server, it's fine. I don't have to worry about my footage becoming all jumpy because of connection issues. So I'm definitely with you there. I think that is one big downside. So on the other side of things, on the recording side, what do you find is a bit of a... what do you prefer about recording over streaming?
Good question. I don't really know because I've always preferred streaming. When it comes to recording, I do like, being able to separate things and not have to do everything at once. I also enjoy the fact that, I can do things without, interruptions. And when I do them, if there are interruptions, I can just, cut it out and stuff like that. But when it comes to, like, recording, I don't really know what advantages I would have over streaming besides, recorded videos seem to get a lot more attention on YouTube than streams.
Yeah. What would you say? Now I'm broadening this even more now, but what are the? Let's talk about YouTube a bit. And I know we've done an episode of the podcast on YouTube already, but YouTube. What are your sort of whole opinions on the platform itself?
YouTube is a great platform. Yeah, it has some issues, especially with the content creators on it and just the way YouTube manages the whole website itself. But if you look past some of its more glaring issues, I think it's a really good place. I've never personally had any problems with it, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as other people make it out to be. Yeah, it can be a pain sometimes, but it's not that bad. It's still a really great place for people to put out stuff they're passionate about. So I've always very much enjoyed YouTube, and I've never really had any problems with it. And I hope it stays around for a long time to come because I think it's a great platform.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this recently, the whole YouTube thing, and I was thinking YouTube have dominated the market so well in terms of video creation. But then again, if you look on the other side of things, so streaming, there have been other platforms out there, and Twitch have sort of emerged as the top platform. So there was things like Mixer, which is now dead. I can't remember when that went out. That was only fairly recently that got shut down by, I think that was Microsoft. So Twitch have now sort of taken over. Obviously, YouTube still have this streaming side, which they are seeming to push more and more as this whole YouTube gaming brand. They're trying to push this a little bit more. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And I did wonder, do you think there will ever be a competitor to YouTube? Imagine one day Twitch starts saying you can upload your videos to the platform. And Twitch are now mostly streaming based but also video based platform, whereas YouTube are mostly video based but also a streaming platform. Do you think there's ever a chance or a possibility that YouTube could be overthrown or overtaken as the top dog in video creation?
I feel like YouTube has been around for so long and everybody knows what YouTube is, and even like a 10-year-old knows how to work YouTube and how to do YouTube things. I feel like if Twitch was ever just like, yeah, you can upload videos now, I don't feel like many people would, because people go to Twitch for one thing only, streaming. When people watch YouTube, they're expecting a bunch of different things, and that's why they upload to YouTube, because people are expecting videos. I don't think it will ever be dethroned as like a video creation website. I think definitely Twitch will always stay above with the whole streaming thing. But when it comes to video creation, I feel like YouTube has already made their mark, and they're going to stay for a while, and they're going to stay on top because everybody uses YouTube at this point.
Yeah, you're right. And just while you were talking, I looked up some of the statistics for YouTube. They have over 2 billion active users a month. That's almost a third of the world's population. 1 in 3 people use YouTube actively every month, which is quite mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting it to be that much. I thought it would be a little bit less, but that is a lot. And I mean, there's loads of stats I've got up in front of me now. Over 2 billion logged in users. So that's not even including the non-logged in users. So there must be more. Watch over 1 billion hours of video every day. 1 billion hours of video every day. And also generate, obviously, billions of views from that. They're mind-boggling numbers. But I think you're right. When you put it into that sort of perspective, that about a third of the world's population use YouTube on a monthly basis, I don't think they're going to be threatened at any time soon. But then again, if there was to be a competitor, which YouTube has definitely had its problems, we've had all sorts of chaos, even in the past 2-3 years. Things like Save Our Internet and that whole, not scandal, but that whole campaign. And to be fair, that wasn't YouTube's fault. And again, there's still quite a bit of ambiguity about all of that. There's also been COPPA, which has been quite a recent issue around child safety and protections on YouTube. If you're interested in an episode on child and all these sort of child safety protections and internet safety protections, I'm hoping to get a guest on the next episode of the podcast where we'll be talking about this quite soon. That's a little side note, so make sure you're following all the podcasts in the right places. I think YouTube's definitely had some issues, and I think there could have been some chances where if a competitor had come in at the right time, there would have been a big audience which has shifted, which could easily be swayed to a different platform, I think. And I think it would be interesting, and obviously competition's a really good thing. I think Twitch is actually entering a bit of a difficult place, and I think long term it might be, because it's coming into this place where YouTube is at. It is dominating the market. There's no one higher, there's no one better, really. YouTube are trying to compete a little bit, but I don't think they'll ever be at the stage where Twitch is, because Twitch is dedicated for streaming, nothing else. And I do wonder, I think it would be good if there were other platforms out there that weren't sort of linked to these big corporation and brands, Google obviously being YouTube, Facebook, another big one, Apple, that would actually compete and would increase the standards on all platforms, because that is the general rule of businesses. Where there's competition, people strive to be the best, so people go and use their platform and fundamentally make them money. So I think it would be great. I'd love to see another platform emerge and do well, but realistically, do I think it's going to happen? No, probably not. I can't see that happening anytime soon, but yeah. It would be interesting. So Cam, back on the recording side of things, what's your process like for recording a video? What's your general rule of thumb? What do you go by?
I have like a set process. Whatever happens, happens. I normally just sit down, make sure everything's all prepared, and then I start recording. I don't really have no recording is always the same. They're always set up differently, except for things like Basic Craft. I have, set things that I'll do, and I'll have everything set up in a certain way. Other than that, when it comes to recording, I kind of I'll be honest, for the most part, I just wing it and hope for the best. Especially when it comes to, Minecraft snapshot videos. I mess those up a lot. Whenever I upload a snapshot video, it's never the first try. It's always, the 15th try. Because I'm not very good at structuring things, to be honest.
Yeah. So once you've got your recorded footage, what do you use to edit? Do you edit? And what's the process from pressing stop record to pressing publish on YouTube?
So I don't really know how to edit. I've dabbled in a few editing softwares, but I always get very overwhelmed and confused. I know how to make jump cuts, and that's pretty much my extent of knowing how to edit. And for that, I really just use the built-in editor in YouTube Studio. It works for what I need, and I can add background music also, which I do sometimes. So, and it serves the purpose I need it because of the type of videos I make. All they really need is jump cuts. They don't need this fancy, flashy editing. So it serves what I need for now. I will eventually learn how to do way more stuff because I do want to, of course, improve my content. But for right now, I'm okay with what I do. And, YouTube Studio's built-in editor is perfectly fine for right now.
That's really interesting. I've never really... you're the only person I've ever really spoken to who actually uses that built-in tool that much. I've used it once or twice if I've had to quickly remove something I've missed in editing and it's not worth me re-rendering the whole video. Maybe I've just left in I don't know what it was, but a little clip that shouldn't have been there. I can just easily cut it out using the YouTube Studio. But I've never really heard of someone doing it all in one, which I think it's a really interesting way of doing it. And if there are people out there wanting to get into content creation, what a great way to go about it. You don't have to have editing software at all. You just have to have OBS, for example, press record your footage with your sound and all that, upload it to YouTube and edit there. I think that's a really interesting idea, actually. That's really, and it's great for those people just starting out with content. Now, my process for recording depends on the content I'm creating. So mostly now the content on my channel is either update or snapshot videos and a Mathcraft video, so survival SMP videos. My general process for a snapshot video would be as soon as I get a notification saying snapshot so-and-so is released, I'll already be prepared with OBS set up and all the info on the screen. I'll then get my changelog up, boot up Minecraft, and I'll make a brand new world. In that world, I would have read through the changelog and look, right, okay, I want to demonstrate this, and this. I want to show this, and this. Look through, actually, I don't need to show these bug fixes because there's not much to show. Oh, look, actually, that's an important bug fix people will be interested in. We'll definitely make sure that's mentioned. So I'll make sure I've got everything highlighted that I'm going to talk through. I'll prep my world. I'll sort of go through, make sure things work. That's something I never did before. I would just do it completely on the fly. But now I have the world ready, so I jump in. I know that I'm going to press this command block, and then it's going to run the time set day command for me or something like that. So I've got everything prepped. And then all I do is I jump, and similar to you, I will do it all in one take. And one thing I've started to do recently is I now do cut out the rubbish sort of naff sections in between in a really simple edit. So they're just jump cuts. I don't add outros or anything else. And then I upload straight to YouTube. And actually that shortens down the video a little bit, makes more people want to watch it. Shorter, more content in a less amount of time. That's what people want. So that's my process for snapshot videos. With the Mathcraft videos, I generally start with a broad idea. Okay, I want to achieve this in my video. Now, by the time this episode of the podcast has gone out, the episode I'm recording at the moment will be coming out soon. So a few spoilers for you, but I'm currently planning my episode 3. So I've got a list of things I've got down in front of me which I want to get done. And one of the main things is going to be this end dragon fight. So we're going to go to the end. So I've got that down. I've got my other bits down. And what I do is I will go down and record it all in different sections. And I can record up to 10 clips per topic. It'll then all be in a folder. And I'll drag it all into my editing software. See it all lined out. And then I'll move it around. So a lot of the time, the order of stuff you see in my video won't be the order it's recorded in, mostly just down to it doesn't flow the best. So a lot of the time I might move my end rating to the middle of the video, and I might get some coal at the start of the video, whereas I got it at the end. So I try and jump it around like that. So there's I spend a lot more time in the edit with a Mathcraft videos than I would snapshot videos. And then obviously similar process, so uploading that, prepping it for release, and that whole process. But I've definitely spent more time recently in editing and trying to learn how to edit a bit more. So animating, making objects move, zoom in, zoom out. That's currently what I'm messing around with it. And hopefully people will see that in the content that's coming up on my channel recently. I'm trying to focus on that a little bit more, but there's a shameless self-promotion plug just there. So on the broad content creation topic, what content do you strive to create? What's your overall? Do you have an ethos for the content you put out, or what do you strive to do?
Good question. When it comes to the content I create, I kind of just want to make something that people would just like watching. I don't really know like what type of content I like strive to create. I just want to create something that people will look at and be like, yeah, I enjoy this. Something for people to just put on. I don't even care if they put it on in the background and just, have a good time watching it. I just want people to, enjoy themselves.
I'm very much a similar stance to you. I think my Mathcraft content, I just want it to be enjoyable content, something you can stick on and forget about everything else for 10-15 minutes. Stick it on, forget about the rest of the world. Forget about your daily stresses. That's what I strive to do. just so people enjoy it, can relax, don't have to be stressed out about what's going on. I guess snapshot videos are a little bit different. They're more educational, as much as you can be educational in a gaming content creation way. But yeah, I think I would obviously, with those videos, I strive to have them out quick and make them concise. They're my two things I make sure I focus on when making a snapshot video. It must be quick, it must be concise, and it must cover everything. So sort of the C's and the Q's or whatever.
Yeah, I've tried like mixing up my content a few times because I do want to eventually branch out to different things. I've always wanted to like you said, like with snapshot videos, they're more of an educational thing. I've always wanted to do like more of educational, like gaming type videos because I've always been fascinated with those, and I've always found them really enjoyable myself. So I've always wanted to create content like that. Maybe I'll end up making a different channel for that type of stuff, as well as a channel like in the same channel, a place where I can talk about different stuff that isn't gaming, because I do enjoy like a lot of other stuff that isn't just video games. Like I have reacted to like movie trailers on my channel before because I do very much enjoy films. So a place, to talk about that kind of stuff and for people to like go to and be like, oh, that's a cool movie. Oh, what's going on with that? Just give updates to people. I think would be pretty cool to do.
Yeah, oh, that's really interesting. Well, I've seen some of your movie reviews, and actually it's really interesting just to hear other people's opinion, even though I'm not a big film person. I probably wouldn't go and see it myself. I do find it interesting listening to things like that. And yeah, I think on sort of a similar topic of sort of what my goals, what do I sort of want to do going forward. I think I want to keep at a similar pace. I've tried on the channel putting out other content. So City Skylines being the main one. I've done some other things here and there. And whereas I do still play it in the background. There'll probably be the things that maybe from time to time I might stream, because it's a good game to stream in the background. It's really chilled. You can do everything at your own pace. But I think long term, I'll probably stick with the structure I have unless anything new comes about, whereas who knows what will happen. But having sort of my big three things, which is obviously the podcast, which has recently started this year, and then my main channel, I think will be my main focuses, and streaming from time to time as and when I find the time. But that's something new. Do you have any sort of long-term goals for the future of your content creation?
Ask that a lot. When it comes to YouTube, I don't really have any long-term goals. I mostly do YouTube because I do enjoy doing it, and I just like making content in general. I've never gone in with the mindset of, yeah, I want to get famous. Yeah, I want this to be my full-time job eventually. It's not really something I have ever thought of. I do it because I enjoy it. If it goes somewhere, then that's fantastic. Then I'll have a better time. But if it doesn't go anywhere, I don't mind. I'm having fun with what I'm doing, and that's all that matters to me.
I think that is such a great way to look at it, and I'm very much with you. Am I enjoying the content I put out? Yes. Tick. That's the box I want to tick. And a lot of the time I find that the way I review my own videos, and I'm a very cynical person, so a lot of the time I look at my videos and say, no, that wasn't good enough. But I try and think about it in a way that, would I sit down and watch this video to the end? If at any point I get bored, then that's actually a lot of the way I do my editing, and I try and change things. It's like, well, what am I doing here that's making me not actually interested? And I think a lot of the time, if you sit down to edit a video, or you've recorded a video, but you're not motivated to edit, maybe you haven't recorded the right type of video, because that's what I try and go by. If I'm not motivated to edit the video, maybe the video's not right, or am I actually going to enjoy this? I think it's all about enjoyment, really. I mean, these are hobbies, so I haven't spoken to anyone yet who's a full-time content creator. Any full-time content creator, feel free to drop me an email. Definitely happy to have you on the podcast. But yeah, enjoyment is my biggest motivator, I think. Well, Ninten, it has been really interesting chatting with you about content creation and streaming and recording, what we stream on, how we create videos, what our ethos behind what we do is. So thank you very much for joining me. It is a little bit of a tradition here on the podcast that I get my guests to rate their experience on the podcast. So, what's your experience been today out of 5?
I'd say it's a 4.9.
Well, I'll take it. We'll go with it. 4.9 out of 5. That's pretty good. You can't go wrong with that. So Ninten, before we wrap up today's episode of the podcast, whereabouts can you be found online and where can people go and check out you?
People can check me out on my YouTube channel. I don't really use anything else.
Brilliant. We'll have Nintendo's YouTube channel linked down below wherever you're watching today's episode of the podcast. Similarly, I can be found all over the internet, most commonly over on YouTube and Twitter, but also on Instagram, Twitch, and all of that jazz. On YouTube at youtube.com/Rover1 and on Twitter at twitter.com/Rover1_ or through a quick YouTube or Twitter search. There we go. Support the podcast by following and sharing. It really does help out ever so much. Have you been interested in today's episode of the podcast? We'd love to hear your thoughts about what we've discussed. Leave us a comment, drop us an email, or tweet me over on Twitter. We'd really appreciate that. The Rover Ramble podcast can be found on all your favourite podcasting platforms and also on the YouTube channel. Be sure to go and subscribe over on YouTube so you never miss any episodes coming out. But that is all the time we have for in today's episode of the podcast. Thank you very much, Ninten, for joining me, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.